Hey YouTube, how you doing? It's BrogiNaric. I'm back again with another review. Today, I'm talking about The Incredibles 2. It's been 14 years of a wait for this film, and I really enjoyed myself. I thought it was really good. I don't know if I would say it's better than the first movie, but it is definitely a solid sequel to this film. Kind of like how Toy Story 2 is a really good sequel to Toy Story. I would put it in that same range. And it's the same sort of Pixar method of making a sequel where they take the first story and they kind of switch it a little bit, but then make it bigger. And that's kind of what they did with this film. Instead of, Bob being the hero and sneaking off to save the day, it's Helen who has to sneak off and save the day, and Bob has to watch the kids. But they amplify, they expand on the things that they left in the first movie, and certain things you didn't see in the first movie they expand on. And I really enjoyed the film, especially after just watching it like a couple days ago. Like this movie picks up right where the last movie left off, where it ended with Underminer. It starts with them fighting Underminer, and that was a great action sequence with the family doing their things to save the day. And like I said, this was a fun movie. So the basic plot is the heroes have been in hiding, or they've been outlawed. Underminer shows up. The Incredibles stop. The Incredibles and Frozone show up to stop him, and they cause a lot of damage. But they save the day. But people are still upset that they have popped up. And this guy who's a billionaire, he runs this company with him and his sister. And he's a marketing guy. He does marketing. She does the tech. She makes the products that they sell. And he comes up with the brilliant idea of like, hey, let's make superheroes a thing again, because he's a big fanboy. Their dad was a big superhero fanboy, and so he's like, well, we can do this, and the best way to do it is let Elastigirl be the mascot, because she's like she causes the least damage, and she's very likable, so we're going to have her be the one to be the mascot for this, which Bob kind of has a problem with. And he decides to stay with the family. And Helen was a little she wasn't sure if she wanted to do it, but Bob's like, look, if we don't, we're gonna be homeless in the next 2 weeks, because their home got destroyed and then they got hemmed up by the police. So she decides to do it, and she's great at it. She's Elastigirl. She's a great superhero. And then Bob is struggling to deal with raising the kids. But also there's a villain that appears that's causing trouble for Helen, or causing trouble for the city, really. And so while Helen's away dealing with that, Bob is helping the kids, helping Dash with homework. He has to help Violet with she's got boy trouble, which I really enjoyed that section. And there's Jack, who has superpowers, which Bob has to deal with all the crazy superpowers that Jack has, which Jack is like crazy OP with all the powers, but he's adorable. And as a whole, this is a very solid film. Like the art direction, man, there's some great scenes with Helen using her superpowers, with the way that it's shot with her at night and how she gets around with her superpowers. There's a great fight sequence that happens between her and the main villain, which was pretty cool. I will say, if you are epileptic and you have problem with flashing lights, you probably not want to watch this in the big theater, because there's a big action sequence that has strobe lights and everything. Just a warning. But the acting is great. Helen Hunt, she does her thing. Craig T. Nelson as Bob is amazing. Like, he has some great moments where he's trying to play nice with Helen about the fact that he can't be a superhero, but she does. And then when he like lashes out about him trying to deal with the kids, because he's like tired, mainly dealing with Jack. Like Jack is the most trouble. Like, he can kind of handle what's going on. He's doing all right with Dash. Basically, Dash is learn math and don't eat junk food. Violet, he kind of caused that problem, and he sort of fixes it in a sort of very dad way, but it didn't really work. But Jack is the most trouble. And There's great stuff with Frozone. If you love Frozone, Frozone is he's the man in this movie. He does way more than what he did in the last movie. He kicks ass. There's new heroes that appear. The new that we see, I like them. They're really cool. You don't get a lot about what you know about them is all you really need to know, but they're really cool. I like their designs and their different powers and little bits of personality you get from them. And Edna is back, and Edna is amazing. She has a great moment that where she feels it. I don't want to give too much away about what she does, but she has great lines. If you don't know, Brad Bird, the director of this, and the writer of this too, is also the voice of Edna, and she comes in and she is clutch. But the villain is cool. I know some people are like, oh, the villain is not as good as Syndrome. Personally, the villain is not as entertaining as Syndrome, but I like the villain's motive. The villain has an actual motive that makes sense, as opposed to Syndrome, who's just mad because one superhero wouldn't let him be his sidekick, so he just kills everyone he knows. Now, Syndrome is definitely more effective, I would say, because he's got bodies. Syndrome's got bodies. He's killed heroes. This villain is effective, but not as effective as Syndrome, not as entertaining as Syndrome, but I like the motivation, and I like their ultimate goal. Their ultimate goal is basically the opposite of Syndrome's, which is also kind of interesting. But I kind of wish they could have teamed up, but because we don't know if Syndrome's dead. They don't say. I'm pretty sure he's dead though. But this was a fun movie. Bob Odenkirk's character, the business guy, he's cool. The sister's cool. There's like an ambassador. She's fine. But like I said, and it's basically like the things that you would, or at least like some of the things I would have wanted to see. Like more action, more Frozone, more of the, I was kind of a spoiler, but more of the Incredicar the Incredible that Mr. Incredible has, more of the family working as a team. You get that in this film. So the one thing I would have liked more in this film, which they didn't have to do, but is more of the superheroes in the glory days. I would have liked to see more of that, but they touch on it, but you don't see much of that, and I really love that aspect of the world. But everything else that I wanted to see, you saw in this film. The story is, like I said, the story is just a remix of the first one, which is fine. They tell it well, it's shot well, the music is great, and the villain, some people saying the villain is weaker. I think the villain is about the same level, just not as entertaining, but as terms of a villain, pretty effective. Not as, deadly, but pretty effective. But if you love the first movie, you're gonna enjoy this film. Is it worth the 14-year wait? I would say no. It was not worth 14 years. They could have took 7 years. They could have took 5 years to make this movie. It was not worth 14 years for this movie, but it's a great sequel. I love this movie. Probably in my top 5 Pixar movies, this probably is number 3 now. It's either 3 or 4, because number 1 is The Incredibles, number 2 is Toy Story, and everything after that I'm kind of iffy on, but this is either number 3 or number 4, I would have to say. Probably 3. But like I said, I love this world. I love these characters. I hope they make a third one at least in the next 5 years. Like I want it now. Hopefully that one, because I wanted a time jump. Hopefully that one will be a time jump, because I really would have liked the time jump. But what they did with picking it up right where the last movie started, they did great. They did a solid job. Once again, great movie. If I had to grade it, I'd give it an A. The first movie, I give it A+. I give this one an A. On a number scale, I give the first one a 10. I give this one a 9. Like it's a slight drop off. I love this movie. And anyone who's going on like, oh, this movie is garbage, they don't know film, and they just want you to watch their video. They just want clicks. They're just trolling, basically. But once again, solid film. Go see it. It's going to make all the money. This movie is going to make all the money. Like, I don't know if it's broke the record yet, but it's on its way to be the highest grossing animated film ever. And yeah, it's going to be that way. But that's all I have to say for non-spoilers. So in a little bit, we're going to get into spoilers. All right, spoilers. Um, I want to just say all of the stuff that they did with Elastigirl, like the cool ways they used their powers, like in the first movie where she, she shields them in the plane. She makes her body into a boat. Her doing the parachute thing. Her trapped in the hallway. They have great moments with her using her abilities and just showing how effective she is. Like she has her motorcycle, which apparently she had a motorcycle back in the day. Like even Bob didn't know this, which I thought was odd that Bob didn't know she had a motorcycle, but she has a new motorcycle and it looks sweet and it can like detach itself. So she's like using it, and there's a chase sequence where there's a train, there's like a big unveiling of this new monorail that's going on. But like instead of it going forward, it goes backwards. Someone's hacked it, so she's on the bike trying to chase it down. And there's this moment where there's traffic and the cops can't go, but she like detaches the bike, splits in two, but her body is stretched in between it, so it like jumps up and like goes around. And she's like, there's a moment where she's like going in the tunnel, but instead of like on top of the bike, she's like stretched her body out horizontally, and the like back of the bike and the top of the bike is like going down the tunnel. Like that was brilliant stuff. There's moments when she's like running on rooftops and she's like stretching up the buildings and like stretching her legs over gaps. Like they did amazing stuff with Helen's powers that I love. They did cool stuff with Frozone's powers too. Frozone was very clutch in this film. He saves the train at the beginning that Underminer knocked down, or kind of, well, he didn't knock it down. It was like inadvertently got hit by the big drill. And he basically kind of saves the, not basically, but he's the last person who ultimately saves the day at the end of the film by stopping the big boat. So, but yeah, Sam Jackson was funny. Craig T. Nelson was really funny. The moment where he, once he finally tells the kids that, because he keeps it a secret that Jack has powers. Then the kids find out, but he keeps it a secret from Helen because he doesn't want to distract Helen. But they call Lucius over. They call Frozone over, and Frozone at first is like, "What are you talking about? Like this kid is normal." But then he sees all the powers that Jack has, and he's just like, "Okay, this kid is a mess. You should there's one person you should take him to, and take him to Edna." And Edna comes in, and she basically, not only does she make a new suit, but she basically helps Bob. She figures out all the powers that Jack does have, because he has like at least 17 different powers that they show him have, which is insane. He can like walk through wall, like besides the ones that you saw if you watched the short, the Jack Attacks short. Like he's got laser beams, he can shapeshift to a monster, he can phase through walls, he can levitate. He can shapeshift to a monster, he can set himself on fire, he can turn himself into metal. But he can also make multiples of himself. He's got the little stretchy gooey thing, which was, if you don't know, that was what they were going to originally do in the movie, but they couldn't animate it right. So in this one, he does it a little bit where his body is like rubbery. Not necessarily he can stretch like Helen, although I'm pretty sure he could once he gets older. He can shapeshift, like there's a cute moment where he's looking at Edna and he like shapeshifts his nose and eyes and makes hair like Edna. That was so funny. And other power. Oh, he can not only can he like phase, but he can like teleport to another dimension. And like I said, he can shapeshift, like not just shape his face, but he can get big. Like there's a moment near the end where he turns into like giant baby. Which was crazy. I was just like, what's going on right here? Like he's this giant baby now. That shit was so funny. But so there's, like I said, there's multiple storylines. So Helen is dealing with being a superhero, and she's working for these two brother and sister. Their father grew up loving superheroes. He was a big fan of superheroes. He was a big supporter of superheroes. He gave money to like the government fund, and one night they were elderly, and some people broke into their house, and he had these two phones connected to different superheroes. This was after the superheroes went into hiding, and he tried to call them up, and nobody answered, and the dad got shot, and like a couple months later, the mom died. And so the brother, like the father, is like, well, if heroes hadn't have been taken away, they could have showed up and saved our family. The sister doesn't feel that way. Now, well, we're in spoilers, so the villain it's very obvious who the villain is. Some people are calling that a negative, but it's like the villain was obvious in The Incredibles. If you know Jason Lee's voice, you watch like the first, 10 minutes of the film, you're like, oh, this kid's gonna be Syndrome. And this, you can pick it up in the first time she pops up on screen if you're just thinking like, oh, she's probably evil. But once you figure out the origin of the parents and the sides that they fall on, you're like, oh, she's the bad guy. I'm not sure how she's the bad guy, but she's the bad guy. And yeah, the sister is the villain. She like she said, she feels the opposite about heroes. She's like, if our dad would have taken our mom to the safe room like that we had in the house, they might have not gotten shot, but he wanted to be an idiot and try to call the heroes. And she's like, heroes are useless, they should be gone. And her whole plan is basically to rework the brothers' plan of making the heroes popular. She has this hypnosis technology, and she's going to mind control the villains to make to basically destroy the city and kill a bunch of ambassadors, and then that would be the final nail in the whole superhero thing, because the brother had kind of worked it where it was like, oh, they're coming back, but then she had this final swoop to make them go away, and she was almost successful. But Helen, like I said, she's a great hero. She figured it out, because there's this awesome moment where she tracks down the villain's transmission signal to this apartment, and he's like in a room, and it's like all this like different technology that he's hacked and used, and then she gets into this fight with him in the room, which was a really cool scene. And he's like a regular person, the screen slaver, but he's got this taser, and when he tases Elastigirl, it weakens her for a bit, so she can't like use her legs or arms or anything. And so he's able to hold his own for a good bit, but then he tries to get away. She eventually catches him, and he blows up the room with all the evidence. And she takes off the mask, and it's this random guy. It turns out he was a pizza delivery guy. And when they're having a little celebration party, Helen notices so there's a little bit of social commentary in this. Just a little bit. It doesn't go deep, but this is very little, where the brother is like, people don't trust the heroes because they only see the aftermath. They see there's destruction, and they see that either the villain was caught or saved, and they make their opinions on that. But they don't see what the hero goes through. So they have these little body cams implanted in their costume, or at least in Elastigirl's costume, so they can show the public what the hero went through in order to save the day. And also so he can kind of market it as, hey, look, heroes are great, and he can make money off of that. And there's a little commentary on police wearing body cams and how it should work, but it doesn't. But she notices on the footage that the recording at the bad guy's lair was her recording as well. So she was like, well, I thought this was a closed circuit. How does the villain have access to my camera? And the sister's kind of like, oh, because her and the sister become pretty well. Her and the sister, Helen thinks her and the sister are friends, and the sister is friendly towards her, but the sister really hates her and is just playing her. And then that's when you find out she's the bad guy. She captures her, puts her in like an ice containment so she can't stretch, and it's like, I'm gonna mind control you and the other heroes to make heroes look bad. And that's a really good plan. It's a cool plan. And like I said, she's effective. Like, she's not ha-ha funny. She's not kooky like Syndrome, but she has a good plan, and she has way better motivation than Syndrome. Almost as effective. I would say Syndrome's a little more effective because he actually did kill a bunch of superheroes, but ultimately, they get stopped. So that's the main crux of the main villain. Now, Violet's, her side story is with her and Tony, because I was wondering were they going to keep Tony in this, the boy she had a crush on in the other movie, and she does, but at the beginning when they're fighting Underminer, she gets left behind. Well, mom and dad goes to stop the drill, and they tell Violet and Dash to stick around to keep the citizens away. So she's kind of mad because she's like, well, I wanted to fight. I don't want to stick here with Jack and Dash. And she ends up taking her mask off, and Tony was there, and he sees her, and he like freaks out. And Bob, so later on, she tells Bob like, oh, there's a kid that knows my identity. So Bob tells the government friend, Rick Dicker, who, like I said, if you watch the Jack attacks, you know when certain people know certain things, he has a device that makes them forget. So he does that to Tony, but Tony, not only does he forget that he saw Violet, but he forgets who Violet is. And they had, if you remember at the end of the first movie, they had a date. So when she goes try to go to the date, he doesn't show up to pick her up, and she's all pissed off. But then she eventually finds out that he doesn't remember her at all because he got mind wiped. So she's mad at Bob for screwing that up. So Bob is trying to figure that out. And that was I like that. I heard someone mention they didn't care about it, but that was adorable. I like that stuff. Especially the moment when they go to they own a family restaurant and Violet doesn't realize why they're there. Then turns out the waiter is Tony, and she's like drinking water, and she like spits the water out of her nose. That was one of the funniest moments in the whole film. That was so funny. And there's a sub thing with Dash where Mr. Incredible finds out that his car is still around. He thought it was wrecked and they didn't repair it, but basically the government just confiscated it from him. And so he finds out this rich guy buys the car, and Dash just like, oh, that's really cool. But like Mr. Incredible still has like the remote control to it. So he was thinking about stealing it, but he doesn't. But that comes into play where the screenslaver mind controls the new heroes and they attack the house, which I suspected might have happened looking at like that first couple of trailers when Dash is like running through the portals. I'm like, I got a feeling those villains are gonna they're evil. I mean, the heroes are either evil or they're gonna be mind controlled, and they were mind controlled, and they attacked the family. And that was a sweet moment because Screenslaver has Helen, calls Bob and like, hey, Helen's in trouble, meet me at the shipping yard. So he leaves, but he calls Frozone to come over to watch the kids. And so but then the kids are smart enough, or at least Violet's smart enough to know, well, if Dad's leaving in his costume and he's called Frozone, we should probably suit up because something's probably going down. I like that the kids are not dumb in this movie. They went through that one experience from the first movie of getting shot at, and they are now on alert. And that's the other thing. The kids, there's a moment at the beginning where the kids are like, well, at least Violet is like, I'm kind of sad because I thought we were going to be a superhero family. Like, I thought we could fight crime now. And they're kind of like, well, the laws was shaky on that. So I like that the kids are not dumb. Like, they went through that one experience. Something's going down. Let's suit up just in case. And so the heroes show up and they're mind controlled. Frozone walks in all cool. I like how he just walks through the crowd all cool. And he's like, oh, y'all here to watch the kids, but I got the call. So y'all can just leave. I got this. And he tries to shut the door. She sticks to the main girl. What's her name? Void. She's cool. She's basically Blink. If you've seen X-Men Days of Future Past, the pink girl with the portals. She's basically that. And so they get into a cool fight sequence in the house, and Frozone, he holds them off long enough, but they eventually capture him, but the kids escape in the Incredicar, and it's like voice activated. Well, Frozone activates it, and then the kids activate it so they can use it to get around. Bob goes to see Helen. She attacks him. He gets mind controlled. And then the big climax takes place on the boat, the brothers' boat, where he's got all these different superheroes from around the world, and they're ambassadors to sign this. They're going to sign this treaty, and then that hopefully will become a law. Like, if these people, sign it, then they can make it well, they were trying to make it national law, and I think by the end they make it at least U.S. law, because different ambassadors was trying to sign it for the UN, and then by the end they make it legal in the U.S. But so the kids using the credit card turns to a boat to get onto the ship, and they're sneaking around, and then they eventually free. The heroes, they do the mind control heroes do the thing where they mess up the treaty, or at least they mess up on camera, so the world thinks that they're turning evil. But the kids free. Who do they free for? Oh no, they free Helen. They make it free Helen. Jack frees Helen because he's basically Jack goes loose because he's looking for his mom, and the Dash and Violet are trying to find him. Violet gets into a pretty cool fight with Void. Violet really stepped up. I have to say, Violet, she was probably one of the more weaker, timid ones, but when she steps up with her powers, she goes in. She gets it in. And Jack eventually frees Helen. Helen frees Bob and Frozone, and then they have to fight the other heroes and free them, which was, like I said, cool stuff. There's cool moments, and So eventually the sister breaks the tail. She tries to run away with the brother. They have like a plane built into the big old yacht, but the brother breaks free and he, tries to help the other people who've been mind controlled. So Helen, the ladies leave, and then they're like, well, like, Mom, go save her. And she's like, well, I don't want to leave. I got my kids here. And they're like, no. This is your thing. Go stop her. We'll figure this out. So she goes with Void. And that was another cool sequence where Void is like kind of opening portals for her to drop down on the plane, but she can't because there's nothing really for her to grab on. But eventually they fix it. That was a cool scene. And she gets into the plane and stop her. While the boat they've like turned the boat around to head back towards the city, but they've destroyed the controls. So they come up with a plan to try to divert it so it doesn't crash into the city. So Frozone is taking out the right side, the front right side, and Incredible has to go in the water to stop the rudder. And they eventually figure that out. But like the climax was really cool. Like it's not as grand of a scale as, giant robot destroying a city, but in terms of seeing the family using their abilities as a team, and and Frozone like using their abilities as a team, it's really satisfying. And Helen takes out the bad guy. She's getting away, and she's like flying the plane up in the atmosphere, so she's losing oxygen, but the sister has like a mask on so she can breathe. And Helen, I thought Helen killed her for a second. I thought we was going to do like the last movie where they just kill Syndrome, because she fires a flare and it hits her and she flies out of the front window of the plane. I was like, is she dead? Because I don't think she had a parachute, but she's not dead. They catch her and they arrest her. And there's the day is saved. Frozone freezes enough that help make the boat turn, and they save the day. And there's a moment where the brother says something where he's like, you guys are very interesting, and Frozone comments like, I don't know if you're gonna have to worry about that. But so I don't think the brother's gonna turn evil. I hope he doesn't, because that would kind of be dumb of him to turn evil on the heroes. But they did make it a little iffy whether he might want revenge or something. I hope not. But that's the interesting thing about this world, that they don't comment on as much, but they show you in the first movies that they're superheroes, but they're also secret agents at the same time. Like they're like if James Bond had superpowers and he fought Goldfinger, Dr. No. That's the type of world they live in, because they mention supervillains, but none of the villains they've ever showed us actually have superpowers. So if they do a third movie, I would like to see a villain with superpowers that they would fight, because most of the villains are just James Bond villains who have gadgets, who can hold their own to a degree with heroes. And that's cool. I'm not against that, but I would like to see a actual, not Thanos, but like someone with superpowers to go against the superheroes. But like I said, all in all, this is a solid film. I enjoyed it, especially if you watch these two films back to back. Like if you haven't watched Incredibles in a while, like rewatch Incredibles, then watch this. I think you would enjoy this even more. Or you would enjoy this film as a whole more, because it's like, yeah, it's been 14 years, but it does not skip a beat. It's just as funny, just as interesting. It's not quite as, I guess like some of the family stuff is not quite like the real family stuff, like the infidelity, the dealing with a midlife crisis. That's not as strong as it was in the first movie, but it's still there, it's just not as strong. But like I said, I'd give this a A. The first movie I'd give an A+. So all in all, great film. Go check it out. It's gonna make all the money. Definitely worth seeing. Take your friends, take your families. I will say there was a lot of kids in this theater, and luckily they were not pains in the ass. Those kids were fine. Hopefully you will get a theater where the kids aren't a pain in the ass. And I kind of forgot, but Pixar movies have shorts, and the short before this film is kind of odd. I don't know if it's, I don't want to use controversial, but it involves Asian people. I think they're Chinese. I missed the beginning, but it involves Chinese people, and some of the way these people are drawn, I'm kind of like, ooh, that might be a little, like, not to be PC or anything, but I was just like, if that was a black person, I saw him drawn like that, I'd be offended. So I'm just saying, it was a little thing with this woman took me a while to realize it was a woman because I walked in midway, but she has a little dumpling or something, and it's alive, and she's raising it and growing up with it. But then you basically, it's a whole metaphor for her brother who left, and then he comes back. He's got the same onion head as the dumpling, and they kind of reunite. It was weird. Like it was weird. It was trying to go to be emotional, but it was like when it got emotional, it was more funny than emotional. But whatever, it was okay. But that's a little. You can skip that if you can, but if you see it, you'll see what I'm talking about. And more reviews coming. You know, June has been a busy month for me watching all these videos, and I thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and stay tuned for more videos.
Finish this thought. I am a slave to
the booty.